Are you ready for deeper meaning and bigger dreams in your life? Do you believe it can happen? Amy and LoriAnn are here to clear the confusion and help you live life full out, guided by your inner wisdom to create, amplify, and align you with your highest self. Are you ready to attract a divinely blessed life? This is Living in the Faith Frequency.
Welcome to this episode with LoriAnn and Amy. And today we are going to talk about being alive and wanted. Amy and I have talked about this in so many different ways. And today, this is really going to be something that we feel like is so needed, that so many relationships could benefit from, right? So I want Amy to be able to talk to us today a little bit about how she's come to feel alive and wanted after all that she's been through.
All right. This is going to be a fun conversation. I feel a little bit nervous about it and excited, so that's a good place to be.
Buckle in.
I'm going to be sharing things I've not shared yet. So, with John passing, and we had just this amazing relationship for 17 years, I was wondering what it would be like to start dating again. And I was like, I don't even know if I know how to flirt. I'm like, I don't know how to date. It's been really like 30 years because everything just happened so fast. I'm going to say I haven't really dated for like 30 years. And so I one day said to a single friend of mine who hasn't dated in 20 years, I'm like, I'm ready to date. And I felt this feeling come over me that I was ready. And I really am tuned into my guidance. And when something comes in and I feel strongly about it, I really try to act because good things happen. So I said, I'm ready to date. And my friend said, I think I'm ready to date too. Can you spread your fairy dust over me? And let's go have some fun. And music has been so healing for me. So I've listened to a ton of music, and we ended up going to a bar where there was live music. And some amazing things happened because when I got there, there was a gentleman that came up to me and said, I've been reading John's book, The Wingman. And I was so shocked that someone was reading his book because I had never even advertised it. I had it at a celebration of life and only my closest friends. And I'm like, how in the world? So I knew John was with me that night.
Yeah.
And come to find out, this guy had played in a band, the last band that John played in. They played together. And he was at the celebration of life. And I had books. I had bought 100 books and handed those out. So he got one. So I knew that night John was with me. Yeah. And things happened. And there was this gentleman that just kept eyeing me. And there was eye contact. And so he came over and asked to buy me a drink. And I said yes. And we were at the bar waiting. And he just had me laughing, and he was very nice. And then he mentioned about his friend over there. He's like, he's such a nice guy. And that was my trigger word for John, because John was such a nice guy. And so there was just lots of little signs and synchronicities. And so I was thinking of my friend that said, hey, sprinkled the fairy dust. I was thinking his friend, and that would be kind of cool. And then he was kind of with someone else, so I didn't want to get involved in that. And I was like, thanks for the drink, and walked off and just kept dancing by myself. And then the band started handing out roses. It was a Fleetwood Mac cover band, and I got a yellow rose, and then I went and got another rose for my friend, and I'm dancing with the rose. I think my stem broke because I was flopping it around. And then the gentleman came over and just says, what do you think yellow roses represent? And I was like, I don't know, like sunshine, He says, well, I heard they represent new beginnings. And my mouth about dropped. And I said, "You have no idea how appropriate that is." And I said, "I
Okay,
would
so I just think
completely
right
agree."
here we should say that's a best pickup line I have heard in a long time.
Right?
So take notes because
Yes.
if you're wanting a good pickup line, there's a great pickup line, and you'll be living in the faith frequency doing it.
Yes, because there's always new beginnings. There's always new beginnings,
Yes,
right? You can't
yeah,
get it wrong. But
right.
it was, yeah, and in that moment I felt this connection of like, wow, he like saw into me somehow, right? And then he walked off. And so I just stayed there dancing, and then at the end of the night, only his friend was there, and he came up to me and he said, my friend wanted me to give you his number and he'd like for you to call him. And instantly, without even thinking, I said, "Well, can I have your number for my friend?" And his mouth dropped and he's like, sure. So I had both their numbers, and I start heading home, and I'm telling my friend, I'm like, "We're going on a double date. We are both going on dates." And I had just decided I wanted to practice dating. I had no intentions of any type of relationship. I just wanted to practice dating because I thought I was really out of whack and I didn't know if I even knew how to date or flirt. So, um, long story short, I did call his friend, and we talked for over an hour, and I scoped him out, and there was three criteria for my friend. He needed to like cats, football team, and how they voted, because she's very big into one side. And so they all matched up. I'm like, okay, let's go on a double date. And so that's where it all began, was in those moments of just paying. And I'm also going to say, this gentleman, he seized the moment, and later when we started dating, and it took a little while because I went out of town for a while, and so we didn't really get to connect until after I got back. So we were able to build a friendship, and we would send songs to one another, and so we would kind of share our feelings, and it was more just good feeling songs, that we shared, but it was consistent every day. So we were, caring and committed and connecting, I guess you could say. And so, it was it took a little bit of time, but what I wanted to say about him was, he would say, when I saw you, you were like 3D, like everything was blurry, and you stood out like completely. And I knew that I needed to meet you, and I knew I needed to seize the moment. And it's exactly what he did. He seized the moment 3 times that night, and no one else was brave enough to ask me to dance. I danced all night by myself, and I that did not care at all. But no one asked me to dance. No one else bought me a drink. No one did anything, but he did those 3 things, and he seized the moment because he says, I couldn't not do that. That's how strongly. And those are those urges, when you get lit up from the inside, you want to act on those moments. And that's what he did. And I also, after talking to his friend, he told me that he started late in life with kids. So he had young kids, and that's why he can't really find a woman his age, because they're all empty nesters and free, and they don't want to raise any more kids. They're done. And that didn't scare me, because I'm like, yeah, that's not ever going to happen. I'm just practicing dating, and we're not even going to go there. So I had zero resistance to his kids, because I didn't think it was going to go anywhere.
Wow.
And then as things have progressed, and I did my traveling and spread John's ashes, and just was really coming into, uh, I'm going to even call it the heavenly sexiness, because that's when I was in Croatia. That's when I got that message about, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago, your younger self? And the message I got was, stay sexy, like stay tuned in and turned on to your life, and really taking care of your mind, your body, your spirit. And so this heavenly sexiness that we're going to be talking more and more about, and there are even retreats that are coming, it has been a game changer for me. So I've been able to really tune into myself before I got to know this gentleman. But we did share the music. There was this special bond with music, and that meant a lot to me. So it was something that kept me uh, continuing to explore this relationship uh, because it was something that I was enjoying, and I just stayed open. But I also um, felt like he would share, like our conversations, he would share about his kids. And I just felt this warm affection for them even before I met them. So, you want to pay attention to how you feel when something warms your heart, when something makes you happy, when something excites you. Like those are all messages for you to pay attention to what's coming in.
I also love that you allowed yourself to talk about John, and
Mm.
he allowed you and encouraged you to talk about John.
Oh,
What
yes.
a big difference in, being able to have a relationship with somebody that was so, caring and loving and generous in tell me more about John, you
Mm.
know?
I love that you brought that up because that was probably the biggest turning point for us
Yeah.
is we ended up going on a double date. And number one, I liked his directness because I was so excited about my friend. She hadn't dated someone in 20 years, and these two just started hitting it off. And he came up to me and said, "Are we just here for them, or is there anything going on?" Because I was so excited about helping my friend. And I said, "Well, I am open and I like you. There's like joy coming from your eyes. You're very positive, so I'm open." He's like, "Well, I'm having fun. Are you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, then let's dance." And so we danced. And then after, we stayed in contact as I traveled. So it was, a good month or so. Then we went on our first real date. And what I loved about him was he was so respectful of knowing that I had lost my husband, uh, several months ago. And he was the perfect gentleman. And when we did go on a date, he came to my house, and John, my late husband, and our dog, Jagger, they were super tight. And Jagger never left John's side. I mean, and John loved him so much that he asked that there was a picture of him and Jagger with him when he got cremated. I mean, that's how special this bond was.
Yeah.
And Jagger was in my house and nowhere to be seen. And then something about the wingman was brought up, and I started telling my friend about John's book, The Wingman. And we started talking about John, and he was so open to hearing me talk about John. And he said, "I love the way you talk about John. I would love for a woman to talk about me the way you talk about John."
Wow.
And in that moment, Jagger comes out of nowhere and jumps up in between us and puts his head on his lap and his body on my lap. And Rhett said, "Do you see what's going on? Did you feel that? Do you feel this? There's something happening way bigger than anything else." And because he recognized that, it was all about this connection. And from that moment, John has been a part of our relationship. And
Yeah.
I ended up giving him a book. I said, "Would you like one of John's books called The Wingman?" He said, "I would love it." And he took it home. The next day, he sends me a text, "Amy, I'm on page 23 and I had to stop and dry my eyes."
Wow.
And in that moment, I started crying because I so felt John's presence. And I felt like he was giving me an approval, and I'm here. And I love that he allowed John to be expressed and
Hmm.
experienced. And he got to know John. And he even has said to me, I feel like I know John." And then after that happened, I started seeing all these similarities, all the things that I loved about John, I started seeing in this person. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I never, there was things about John. He was the most loving human being I've ever met. And he was so attentive and caring and even protective of me. Not that, I'm not a big person on protection, but he's like, he was making sure that, no one took advantage of Amy. He's right there. And I started seeing these similar qualities in this gentleman. And I really didn't, I just said, well, I don't need anyone like John. Because I think what I really was thinking, I will never find anyone with those qualities. And it's okay. I'll just move on and I'll find something else. But I don't even know what it is that I'll find,
Yeah.
you know. But there was, there was just these qualities, similarities, and yet complete uniqueness. There was things that I didn't experience with John that I was experiencing with this person, which was exciting and new, which is why that whole alive and wanted has come about, is because I felt very, very alive and very wanted. There was this chemistry, there was this attraction, and I hadn't really felt that before in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we learn to listen to our guidance and we pay attention and we give ourselves permission to follow what feels right for us, and we don't push and we don't force, but we just pace ourselves. We really tune inward and just pace ourselves. I think when we slow down and allow is when we become so alive to life. And then we are tuned in to what we want, and then we draw it to us, which then makes us feel wanted because we're drawing to us exactly what we want. And when law of attraction is both people are doing it. So both people are drawing to them exactly what they want. And that's really what's happened with Red and I. He knew exactly. He says, I've been praying for a woman like you for 5 years, 6 years, 5 years, 6 years. And it's exactly what he knew what he wanted. I was still uncovering what I wanted because I didn't know if I could still have something so amazing, but I knew I wanted to feel safe and loved and adventure. I like travel. I like, excitement. I wanted to start dancing. I wanted, passion. I wanted all of those things. And so I was attracting that as well. So we both were attracting what we wanted. I just didn't know it was going to look the way that it did. So you can't follow logic. You
Right.
just follow your heart.
And the vibration that you're vibrating at, I think you need to talk about that
Mm.
because there are so many women that I hear them say, I always attract the wrong guy. That it's just like their mission statement almost. They say it so powerfully.
Mm.
So, what you just described is magical because you guys were attracting at the same level of vibration that you were, that I know that you've got all this new stuff coming out and I'm not going to divulge that yet. But I think that we could, really address that a little bit with how powerful it is when you start having those people come into your life and then are you settling for it? Or are you really like becoming that better and better? Like you say, it just gets better and better and better. Yeah. So talk about that a little bit because
Yeah.
you've just touched the surface of it.
Yes, yes. Well, I was very attuned to my vibration and to allow joy. My joy is the key necklace. I've talked about that. And I gave myself permission to dream. I would listen to love songs. They would not make me sad. I would get excited because I would imagine experiencing love because I could still feel John's love from the other side, and how much love we felt was still with me. And I just thought, there is going to be one lucky man out there because I learned to love on such a deep level. It is easy for me to love. And I'm going to make someone a very lucky man because they're going to get to experience love, and he won't be responsible for my emotions and how I feel. I'm responsible for how I feel, and I let him off the hook. And I would imagine being with this person who just loved me, adored me. We had fun together. I really wanted someone who wanted to dance because I wanted to start taking dance lessons. So I had those visions, and that was the main things. And I would listen to country songs and love songs, and I would just imagine that I was in love because I was in love with my life. I was in love with John. I was in love with how everything unfolded and that he's still with me and we're still connected. And I learned so much about, number one, what I'm capable of doing, the other side, the connection, how to have faith through, adversity. Like, I learned so much. I would never want, like, that's so valuable. So I was in love with my life, having a great time. And I would have dance parties in my house by myself. And I did everything I could to keep my frequency up. Well, on the other hand, this gentleman, he's a single dad of 3 kids. The mom is barely around. She only watches 2 of the kids for a day or two a month, and he has them full time, and he has learned to be joyful and happy and thankful, and he had just given up so much of his life to raise these kids, because being a good dad was a priority of his. And I had so much respect for him. So here he's joyful because I always said, John's eyes were kind. I always says John had such kind eyes, and that's one of the signs when we got together. But Rhett has joyful eyes, and it wasn't that John was definitely joyful. I never saw him unhappy. He was just the most steady. But Rhett had this joy and kind of fire that you could passion that just comes, like he used to race motocross dirt bikes, and he, like, he's kind of the adventure and like to be living on the edge. So I could feel his passion for excitement in life. And I'm a lot like that. So we came together with this vibration of joy and adventure and excitement and an open heart of, like, and being tuned in of, like, we don't know what this is going to look like, but we feel there's something, and we gotta stay open to this.
The one part that I love too, that you kept it going, the way that you were able to just nurture this relationship, and you've only touched on it a little bit, is sending songs to each other.
Hmm.
And how you've been able to share that now with so many people,
Hmm.
that now because they've seen this joy in you, this fun, the adventure, they've been able, we've all been able to watch that. And you say, well, here, let me show you the songs that we sent to each other, and you've been so giving in that respect, and saying, this is the song I sent today, or here's a song for you. And these songs, YouTube video songs, and whatever it is that you're sending, and the powerful message that there is with the music,
Ah,
and how John loved, 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 loved music. And now you were just like, I know we've talked about this in other episodes, but how you just wanted to embrace the music, and that John's been able to help you now with all these songs that you've been able to share. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I
So, touch about that a little bit.
love that you brought up the music. So John and I met in a band at the church through music, and he helped me to get my voice back. I had lost my voice, and he helped me to sing again.
Mhm.
Then when he passed, the first thing he did within an hour was he sent me a song called Three Little Birds, and talking about how he's not worried about me, because that was always his thing. I'm not worried about you. I'm not worried about you. Like, that's such a great compliment. So we met through music, and as soon as he left his body, he sent me a song. And so in that dreaming state that I had about my next relationship, I would imagine me sending songs, and him sending, like, us just sending music back and forth. And I'd never done that before in my life, but I had this strong craving and desire for it. And so I really, really wanted that. So one day, and it wasn't that far along, but Rhett said, "Hey, Amy, if there was a song that describes you, what would it be?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe he just went there." I have been dreaming of that. Like, did he intuitively pick it up? I don't know how it all worked. I don't know how that works. I just know how to like listen and act, and then all these amazing things start happening. So I sent him back a song, and it was a Faith Hill song. And I said, "How about you?" And he sent me back a Tim McGraw song. And we have literally, and then the next day I said, "Hey, if you could send a feel good song, what song makes you feel good?" And so we just started sending feel good songs. They weren't telling anything about, it was just all about enjoying life. So we did
Mhm.
that for like a month, nothing but just feel good songs. And then once we finally had like a true date, and then John showed up and with the dog, and everything began to shift, I was just like, my heart just opened up, and all of a sudden I started having feelings that I was not expecting at all. And you can't help when your heart breaks open. And like, I didn't even know I had anything around it, but it was literally broken open. And I was in tears. And I also, I told him, I said, I wasn't expecting to feel these kind of emotions.
Yeah.
And he was so wonderful about it, but we never stopped sending music. So after that moment, when I was able to say, yeah, yeah, I'm starting to have feelings, then our songs began to change. And then he would send every day, like almost a new song. And I'm like, where do you find these? Like, there is a song that can describe however you feel in the situation you're in. They're out there. There is a song for everything. And he has never missed a day in sending me a song. And the words are so powerful and meaningful. Music is powerful. So, yes, I have shared this with many friends, and I have another girlfriend that went through a divorce, and she's heard our story and how alive and wanted, and that heavenly sexiness that's going on. And she attracted, I think it's going to be her life partner, and they've been sending music. Like, I'm watching this ripple out. And LoriAnn, even with you, you've been married 40 some years,
Yep.
and you have shared so much about your connection with your husband and what you do to keep things alive, and how you both keep wanting one another, and how you keep it exciting. And it's not something that just happens. It's something that you are intentional about. And how do you keep that connection? How do you keep wanting one another? And I'm really excited to like cover this, and we'll probably continue, because I think this is heavenly sexiness, is being alive and wanted, because
Yes.
you're drawing to you what you want. You want to feel worthy of what you want, and you want to let it in. But I know you and Ray have been married how many years?
42, 43 this year.
Wow. And you both feel alive and wanted, and you are really good at following your guidance, and taking risks and doing things that your heart says yes, even though the logic says that doesn't make a lot of sense. But
All of
that,
that.
I
Yes.
think that's where we live on the edge, and the energy, and the faith frequency is trusting that even though we don't have the path, we know that it will show up. And as you get into that excited state, and you imagine and dream of what you want, and then you are joyful and happy and kind and generous, the flow doesn't stop. The flow never stops.
I just think sometimes people don't even know what they want. Because I ask people all the time, well, what is it that you want in this relationship? How do you want to feel? How do you want to, and it's almost like just, yeah, well, I've done that. And it's just like, oh, their vibration just drops.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's so much that their vibration drops. It's so much that they just don't know. if you don't know how to dream, you don't know what you could do to take your relationship to the next level. That's why I think this is so important that we talk about these things. Just because what if every woman and man that was in a relationship or anybody that's in a partnership that wants to develop that relationship, we're sending music to each other every day with the words being expressed. And sometimes we don't know how to express the words,
Yeah.
or we don't I don't know what it is, like, just it's hard to get those feelings out of what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why this is important. The music is helping you to feel alive and wanted, and there's things that you want to say,
Yeah.
right?
I, absolutely. And the music has said so much. So, when he sends a song and I'm listening to the words, I'm listening as if he is saying those things to me.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the work. We're not just listening to a song, but we're receiving the message that the song was sent, and vice versa. And I think that's what has developed such a strong connection. And I'm also going to say we're really good at communicating with one another because we've committed to sharing and caring, putting that energy into things on a daily basis that has built our relationship.
Yeah. That, that's so powerful. I love the way music can express our words for us. And what I've seen with that is you touched on it, then the communication is so much better.
Yes.
Because now you have something to talk about, you have something to express, and that person might have a question. Well, did you mean this when you sent that? Like, you get to have these deeper conversations around your feelings. And when you can, like, let your heart open and be able to express your feelings a little bit more, then I think that's what builds the relationship. I know that's what helped Ray and I through all of these years, because it has not been a piece of cake through the whole thing. There have been times when we have started to fall out of love with each other, and we both know it. And then it's just like, hey, wait, we need a reset. We have got to have a reset and come back together and start dreaming together, making plans together, saying what we want. Because a lot of times we only express the things we don't want.
Mm.
And your brain doesn't hear what you don't want. When you start saying things you don't want, that your brain just thinks, oh, let's give it to him. Let's give it to him. Give it more, give more, give more. So that when you start expressing love, that is such a higher vibration. And you start being able to commit and connect and have that alive feeling.
Yeah. It is amazing. And what's so cool is when you get that going in your personal life, and whether you're single or whether you're dating or you're married, it doesn't matter. It's about getting into this frequency, having faith that you can get there and feel good. But when you do that in your personal life, it bleeds over into all the other areas. I'm watching my career really expanding a lot. The creativity, like, it increases your creativity in all areas, and when you feel alive. And I think this is what we're wanting to keep moving towards. And I also, the other thing that's coming up for me is dealing with disappointment.
Yeah.
When what you were saying is people, well, I've tried this, I've tried that. They get disappointed. And I've thought about this from kids, parents, adults. The biggest challenge that I see people with is recovering from disappointment. How do
Mm.
you keep the faith when you've been disappointed, when someone's disappointed you? How do you recreate these stories in your mind instead of feeling like a victim or feeling like nothing's ever going to change? How do you keep your mind open to the possibilities and not needing it, but wanting it and saying, God, show me.
Yeah.
How can I show up in this frequency to attract it in what I want? And don't make it about the other person. How do you get yourself there? And that could be something that could be a whole nother episode that we talk about
Yeah.
dealing with disappointment to get that feeling of aliveness and wantedness.
Yeah. Well, I love that we are expressing all of these things and being able to watch you go through it personally. And we're not just talking like in theory, this works. We get to be there right with you as you're going through it. And the vulnerability and the authenticity that you're having in sharing this with us, it makes a difference. And it really it touches us clear to the inner core of who we're being when we get to see somebody show up so real and so alive and so wanted and so heavenly sexy and living in this faith frequency, this all coming together like that. It's available for everybody. And just because we're talking about it and you're here listening, it is available for you. It's available for you.
Absolutely, it is. And we're
Oh,
going to keep talking about it, and you
yeah,
just keep tuning in, and we're all going to rise and keep rising. And the better it
yeah,
gets, the better we can get through any challenges of life, and we can find our way through. That's what we want. And not
yes,
only find our way through, but thrive and feel alive and feel wanted and keep creating in your life. It doesn't matter what age you are, you get to create in your life what your heart desires.
yeah. So thank you for being with us today and being part of this message. Make sure to click on to the subscribe and save and do the little bell up in the corner. I remember John used to say that in our podcast. He's like, remember to click the little bell and subscribe. I used to love doing those podcasts with him and being able to be a part of his life. So I love that he's here with us because I just was like, don't forget to say subscribe and hit the little bell. And it's like, John is just with us all the time.
He
I
is,
love
he
that.
really
I
is.
love
He's never left.
it. No.
And stay
So,
tuned for our Heavenly Sexiness retreats that
yes,
are in the works. We will be announcing, so stay tuned.
so excited for that. So, thanks for being here today. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to Living in the Faith Frequency. Keep shining, keep aligning, and keep trusting your inner guidance as you live your life full out. We are here to guide you as you step confidently into your faith journey. Be sure to subscribe and stay connected. Check out the show notes and let us know what topics would you like to hear next. On behalf of Amy and LoriAnn, we want you to keep talking, keep dreaming, and keep feeling blessed.